Good morning. So welcome to the February 5th SANDAG Transportation Committee meeting. For those of you that may not know who I am, my name is Nora Vargas, and I am the Vice Chair for the San Diego County Board of Supervisors. I am the Supervisor for District 1, and I am so pleased and grateful to have been appointed as the new Chair of SANDAG Transportation Committee. I also want to thank and announce, I want to announce and congratulate San Diego Councilmember Raul Campillo. He's here as well, who will be serving as our vice chair. And I think both him and I were chatting yesterday about how I think this is the first time you have two Latinos leading SANDAG, which I think the Transportation Committee for SANDAG, and it's pretty exciting. For those of you that may or may not know, transportation is one of my key issues that I'll be working with, and I'm just so proud to be here today. And so this is absolutely a pivotal year for SANDAG as we prepare to adopt the next regional plan, and this committee is going to play a critical role in its success. And so I'm really looking forward to working with all of you in these efforts. I also want like to take a moment to recognize Bill Sandick, the former Vice Chair of the Transportation Committee, for your leadership and your service at SANDAG. So I know that Councilmember Campillo and I are both really looking forward to working with all of you and the rest of the members of the committee this year. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join me with the pledge. I'm going to stand anyway because I always feel weird. Okay, so I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, so let's start. Next, we are going to ask our clerk to confirm that we have quorum. Clerk?
Thank you, Chair. We do have a quorum.
Fantastic. I'd like to remind members of the public in our process for both members and public comments. The primary members will be using their cameras and we will take live public comments. Members are asked to turn on their cameras when they have a comment or question, and then I will then recognize you, okay? So I'm going to ask our legal counsel to provide a quick reminder of how the public comments will work. Please, Ms. Amberlin.
Thank you, Chair Vargas. As noted on the cover page of the meeting agenda, in addition to emailed comments, the public may also provide live comments during the meeting. In order to provide the live comments, you can join today's Zoom meeting through the link or by dialing one of the numbers that are provided on the cover page of today's meeting agenda. When public comments are called for on an item, please click on the raise hand icon in the Zoom toolbar. The clerk will then call on you by the name you have provided. If you're participating by telephone, please press *9, which will raise your hand and indicate your desired. The clerk will then call on you by the last digit.
I'm having trouble hearing you. I think there's something happening. I'm not really sure what's going on. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just so you know.
Production, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, it's kind of, it goes out a lot, but I'm not sure if it's only me or other folks hear it too.
Okay, I'll just finish up by saying that.
There you go. Okay, much better.
Are provided on the bottom of the cover page of today's meeting agenda, which can be located at www.sandag.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Amelin. With that, it's now that everybody has the information, it's we're going to start with item number 1, approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Benelli.
And there's a second?
Edson, second.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Motion carries. So are there, the Transportation Committee was asked to review the minutes for the 15th, so we have that. Let's see, can we have roll call, please?
Just thank you. Chair, I just want to take a second because I did see a hand raised on the public attendees, and so I just wanted to see if there's any public comments on the minutes specifically.
Oh, I apologize for that.
No worries. Okay, it looks like that person's put their hand down, so I'll go ahead and read the roll call. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I missed that. Thank you very much for calling. All right, so now we can go ahead and do roll call.
Thank you. For the San Diego County Regional Airport Authority, Gil Cabrera.
Good morning, Gil Cabrera, President. And we just got appointed yesterday, so Bob Lloyd and I will be sort of tag teaming today. We have a couple conflicts.
Thanks so much. Could you give me your vote for the minutes, please?
Aye.
Thank you. And for the City of San Diego, Vice Chair Campillo?
Aye.
Thank you. For the County of San Diego, Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Thank you. For East County, Councilmember Mendoza?
Mendoza, aye.
Thank you. For Metropolitan Transit System, Councilmember Montgomery Stepp?
Yes.
Thank you. For North County Coastal, Councilmember Zito?
Zito, yes.
Thank you. For North County Inland, Mayor McNamara?
McNamara, yes.
Thank you. For North County Transit District, Councilmember Edson?
Edson, aye.
Thank you. For the Port of San Diego, Commissioner Benelli?
Benelli, yes.
Thank you. And for South County, Councilmember Sankey?
Sankey, yes.
Thank you very much, and that does pass unanimously.
Thank you very much. Up next is item number 2. Are there any public comments under this agenda for item number 2?
It looks like we do have a public speaker. Nicole Burgess, you can go ahead.
Good morning, Transportation Board. 2021 to all of you. Here it was the roll call. Hi, Nora Vargas, Hi, Supervisor Nora Vargas. Congratulations as chair. I hope you can hear me okay. Congratulations to Campillo for City Representative, and I see here Montgomery up here. You know, I'm just happy to appreciate the opportunity to comment. I will comment on it below, but I just wanted to introduce myself as Nicole Burgess. I sit on the board of IC and just love to talk transportation and ride my bike. I miss riding my bike to these Sandag meetings, but it does give me a better opportunity to engage in this committee. I look forward to commenting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess. I think that I missed, I want to make sure that any members of the public who wish to offer public comment not related to any matter in today's agenda, to please raise your hand at this time so we can call on you. And I think that's what we just did. So I forgot to read it and want to make sure that I don't forget. So, and next, any comments from our committee members on this item? Nope. Okay.
Chair, looks like Gustavo has his hand raised.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gustavo.
Good morning and congratulations, Chair Vargas, as well as Vice Chair Campillo. I have a few announcements that I think may be of interest to the other board members as well as the public. The first one is that with the lifting of the statewide stay-home orders, our district office in Old Town has reopened. So the Caltrans buildings are reopened. We continue to encourage most of our office workers to continue teleworking as the COVID pandemic continues. And we continue providing most of our services in a virtual manner. But I just want to share with everyone that our Caltrans district office has reopened. It was closed in December when the stay-home orders were put into effect. Our traffic in our highways remains at about 15 to 20% below normal numbers. And that reflects also higher speeds on our system. A couple of weeks ago, I was in a meeting with Federal Highways where they highlighted that even though the traffic volumes are down, the number of fatalities are up, which is confirmation that, well, speed kills, and we need to continue keeping an eye on that and doing everything we can to make our roads safer. So safety, along with equity and climate action, will be of great focus for Caltrans in 2021. Last week, we held a very successful public scoping meeting for the State Route 67 project. This is a project that proposes some improvements in the portion of State Route 67, a 16-mile portion between the communities of Ramona and Lakeside. We had about 80 attendees, and we received some very good comments as well as questions about the need and purpose of the project, as well as the alternatives that we're proposing. And we will continue receiving comments on that project until February 19. Also last week at the California Transportation Commission, Caltrans unveiled a dashboard that shows all of the projects that Caltrans is planning to do as part of the SHOP. The SHOP is the State Highway Operation and Protection Program. It's our biggest program where we have all the projects lumped in there that are fixing the condition of our transportation assets. And those are pavement jobs, bridge jobs, ITS jobs, and culvert jobs. So anybody from the public and yourselves can go to this dashboard and see where the projects are, when they're going to be done. And the address for that is project book period DOT, as in Department of Transportation, period CA, period GOV. Next week, on February 11th, we have two exciting things. The first one is the Border Master Plan Policy Advisory Committee and Technical Working Group. We will be adopting the 2021 Border Master Plan for the San Diego, Baja California region. This will be, as well as the Imperial Baja California region. This plan will be a guide that will guide all the investments along the border that will improve equity as well as air quality and also goods movement and the economy. And also on the same day, on February 11th, Caltrans will be hosting the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. This is a quarterly committee that is joined by representatives from active transportation for all the major cities in San Diego and Imperial County, as well as community groups that advocate for active transportation. We get a lot of great comments about the projects that we have upcoming, as well as needs and gaps in our system. So we welcome anybody that wants to join in the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And that concludes my announcements. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Any comments from the public? Okay. All right, so we're going to move on.
I'm sorry, Chair. Councilmember Edson has her hand raised also.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Supervisor. I just would ask if Gustavo could put that email address for the Caltrans dashboard in the chat. For some reason, the sound's really bad today.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. There seems to be something going on with the way we can hear people and stuff. So, okay. All right. With that, we're going to move on to item number 3, Executive Director Report. Hassan Ikratas with Sandic, an update key programs, projects, and agency initiatives. Sir.
Thank you, Supervisor Vargas. And again, congratulations in your chairmanship to you and to your vice chair, Mr. Campio. I think I told you this. This is one of the most important committee we have at Sandag. I think, especially when it comes to transportation, before anything goes to the board, goes through this committee. You have one of the best liaisons for the committee, Phil Tram. You're gonna work with him, but I'm always ready and available if you need my help. Let me update you on a couple of things. One is I want to thank those of you who were able to attend the membership orientation over the last couple of days. I thought your participation was important. The dialogue was important. I want to thank you. I want to thank my team who actually gave a great recap of everything we do. I know this might be overwhelming to many who are new, but this is not the last time we're going to be speaking to you about our programs and policies. And so never hesitate to call, but we're going to have many, many more discussions. On the equity statement, I'm happy to report to you that the ad hoc subcommittee that the board appointed has met and unanimously moved forward to the board of directors the statement, which is similar to the statement that the board discussed, with one word added to the initiatives. On the 12th, next week, the board will take on the statements, and if they were to approve, we will start the agency's work on the equity action plan. But I want to thank all of you for a great discussion on that regard. The regional transportation plan, the 5 big moves, is going to the board next week. We'll start presenting an update to this committee and to the board. I continue to be amazed by the staff of this organization who are truly putting out a state-of-the-art product that's becoming a statewide and national example of how data-driven planning processes move forward. I'm very proud of them, and I think you will be once you hear that this national model is moving forward. So proud of the team, and I told them, just be yourself and do it based on planning and don't worry about anything else. And they're doing just that. We're reimagining the future of transportation system in San Diego, allowing the 3.4 million San Diegans to dream, and with your leadership, I hope we'll accomplish these dreams. A couple of updates and a couple of projects. The jewel of our infrastructure project, the Mid-Coast, on time, on schedule. You're going to see these beautiful red cars running trials in the summer, and we're going to open that line to the public in November. It is fair to say that this project is the largest infrastructure project in San Diego. Our staff, our financial team, Andre Dujan, our CFO, and his team, Don Batiste, managed to refinance the TIFIA loan, which ended up saving $123 million for the public. This month, the crew will finish construction of the Noble Drive trolley station parking structure, and then later this month, you see San Diego will celebrate the lightening of the university sign that spans over the Gilman Bridge, the Gilman Drive Bridge over Interstate 5. The Gilman Bridge was part of the Mid-Coast. Caltrans, the university, and Sandag partners on this. The I-5 high occupancy vehicle lane, and soon to be converted to high occupancy toll lane, is this week construction crew are shifting traffic north of Manchester Avenue and Encinitas toward the I-5 median in preparation for the widening of that HOV lane. We're looking forward to completing this project, and with that project comes some bike programs, pedestrians, and others. So this is an amazing North Coast project. On the Del Mar Bluff, the crews are finishing the phase 4. With the help of the Secretary of Transportation, David Kim, we identified funding for the next 2 phases. But to have reliable passenger cargo train service on the second busiest corridor in the nation, we must someday soon get the tracks off the bluff permanently. As I said previously, I don't think I'm going to recommend to my board that they spend another penny on temporary fixes beyond the money identified for phase 5 and 6. It's time to get serious. Yes, it's expensive, and yes, it's going to take a long time, but yes, it is the only way we can move forward. We can fight nature, but nature will win at the end of the day. I also want to congratulate our partner NCTD for the purchase of their coastal passenger cars. They use money from SB1, Sandag, and grants, about 47 million, came from the state. Sandag contributed 58.8 million, and we're going to have beautiful NCTD cars for the passengers shortly. And the State Route 11 and Otay Mesa 2 is moving on schedule. I want to conclude my report by just updating you that yesterday we heard from the court regarding our Rana lawsuit, and this court pretty much was determined that this court lacked judicial review of the claims. They used the City of Irvine case will fill you more detail. It's preliminary, so there was more discussion to be had. Madam Chair, Supervisor, that concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any public comments, any questions? Please raise your hand at this time if you have any comments on this item. And I'm gonna, for the public, the others, I think one person who's raised their hand.
I do see a hand from Nicole Burgess.
Ms. Bridges.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Hassan, for the thorough and great report. There's a lot of information in there. Thank you, Chair, for letting me comment on this. I just want to give a big shout out, yay, to the Mid-Coast. Exciting to hear it rolling out. And as I ride up and through that area to Miramar and that coastline, there's so much opportunity and excited for the Rose Creek bike. But I really do want to recommend Hassan and your Standag staff to evaluate the bike and e-bike access sheds around those stations, specifically Balboa, Claremont. You know, this is how you increase the catchment for your ridership onto the Mid-Coast. And it is extremely important, as I've said before, in order for us to get voters to want to approve a big, huge vision that I completely support, we are going to want it for the Mid-Coast is successful. So thank you again for the report, and thank you for letting me have this opportunity.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole. Any other comments? Okay. Moving on to reports, items number 4A and 4B are the TransNet financial strategies. I'm going to call on Andre.
Yes, good morning, and thank you, Chair Vargas, and congratulations and welcome. As a Sandag CFO, I'm pleased to present you with your first Transportation Committee report. So at the last TC meeting, staff presented an informational item overview of our proposed bond and note issuance. Today, we will remind you why we are issuing these bonds and notes, but the focus will be on the review of all the bond documents that are attached to this report. We'll also be looking for a recommendation of approval to the board. So in item 4, we have transactions that are similar in nature, but have separate documents and will ultimately require independent approval. So we're presenting them as items 4A and 4B, and we'll wait until the end of both items for your approval. So we'll start off with item 4A, which is an overview of the proposed 2021 bond issuance, a refunding and new money piece. Next slide. So besides the Sandag staff that is working on this transaction, as always, we have procured a finance team that will assist us through this transaction. So with me on the call today are Peter Schellenberger with PFM, our financial advisors, Devin Brennan from ORIC, our bond counsel, and Victor Hsu from Norton Rose, our disclosure counsel. In addition, Julie Berger from Wells Fargo and Brian Rockwell from Bank of America, our co-senior managers, are on this call too. Next slide. So in our presentation, prior presentation, we went through items 1, 2, 3, and 5, which I'll touch on today. But as I mentioned, we'll be focusing on item number 4, the bolded one, the bond documents. Next slide. So why do we need to issue these bonds? And that is based on the current revenue projections. We would need an additional $170 million to $220 million over the next 5 fiscal years to cover the project costs that are currently included in the Sandag program budget. Issuing these bonds will reduce the shortfall. Next slide. So looking at the summary of the upcoming transactions, as Hassan just mentioned, we did close on the TIFIA loan a couple of weeks ago with a savings of $123 million. Now, these items that we'll be discussing in item 4A is in particular items number 2 and 3, the advanced refunding of the Series 2014A bonds and the issuing of approximately $85 million in new money. Next slide. So Sandag has very strong ratings on its senior and subordinate liens, a AAA rating from both S&P and Fitch, and a AA rating on our subordinate lien. Now, every time we go to do a new bond issuance, we are required to get a new rating, and we're pleased to say that S&P did affirm their ratings just this week, and we expect the same from Fitch next week. Next slide. So now looking at the structures of the 2021 Series A bonds, we expect to refinance approximately $150 million. We expect the savings based on where interest rates are today to be approximately $20 million. This will be a taxable deal, and it will be on the senior lien. Now, we are potentially going to try do a tender option on these bonds, which is a way for us to potentially have additional savings by refunding some of these bonds, actually not refunding, but giving them a tender option, which would enable us to have them as a tax exempt basis. The 2020 Series B bonds, we're projecting approximately $85 million of issuance, which would give us about $113 million of project fund. These will be on our subordinate lien, and these will be tax exempt bonds. Next slides. So there are 8 attachments to this report that we will now review. Now, while the board has the ultimate responsibility for approving the 2021 transaction, the Transportation Committee, in considering a recommendation to the board, is also asked to evaluate whether the factual statements are true and correct in all material respects, that the information does not contain any untrue or misleading statement of a material fact or omit to state any material fact that would make the information, any of the documents regarding Sandag misleading. So next slide. The first attachment is the memo from PFM, our financial advisors. We give a market update in this memo, as well as more detail of the new money and refunding structure, as well as the tender option. I will now turn it over to our Bond and Disclosure Counsel to go through the remaining documents. Next slide.
Thank you, Andre. Devin Brennan, I'm a partner with Orrick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe, and I'll be taking you through the bond documents. Resolution that the Commission is approving is attached as attachment number 2, and the resolution authorizes one or more series of 2021 bonds in a maximum principal amount not to exceed $200 million for purposes of refunding all or a portion of Sandag's outstanding 2014 bonds. The resolution also authorizes one or more series of 2021 new money bonds in a maximum principal amount not to exceed $110 million. The resolution sets forth certain maximum parameters for the bonds as well, including interest rates not to exceed 6%, an original issue discount of not to exceed 2%, a true interest cost of not to exceed 5%, and a maximum maturity date of April 1, 2048. The resolution authorizes the execution of documents in connection with the transactions. The team will review the major documents, including the bond documents and the disclosure documents, in greater detail, but a brief summary is presented on this slide. The official statement and its preliminary form describe the terms of the bonds, as well as material information about the Commission to potential investors. The 11th supplemental indenture sets forth the terms of the senior refunding bonds of the Commission, and the 3rd supplemental indenture sets forth the terms of the subordinate bonds that the Commission proposes to issue. The bond purchase agreements set forth the terms on which the underwriters agree to purchase the Commission's senior and subordinate bonds, and the continuing disclosure agreement sets forth certain obligations of Sandag to disclose annual information, as well as the occurrence of certain events. The resolution finally authorizes other actions that are necessary and desirable to achieve the purposes of the resolution. So the first document that I will run through is the 11th supplemental indenture, and if we could move to the next slide. The 11th supplemental indenture is supplemental to Sandag's master senior indenture. The master senior indenture sets forth basic terms of the senior sales tax revenue bonds, including the pledge of revenues and repayment provisions relating thereto. This specific indenture, the 11th supplemental indenture, provides for issuance of the 2021 refunding senior bonds and sets forth certain specific terms of the bonds, including, for example, redemption provisions. The 11th supplemental indenture further contains covenants of Sandag, including covenants to comply with disclosure-related requirements. There is certain specific information that will be added to the 11th supplemental indenture following pricing within the parameters authorized by the Commission in the current resolution, and those include things like the interest rate on the bonds, the maturity date of the bonds, redemption dates, total proceeds, and similar items. Moving to the next slide, which is the 3rd supplemental indenture to the subordinate indenture, it's attachment 4. The subordinate indenture sets forth basic terms of the subordinate sales tax revenue obligations, including the short-term notes and the Sandag's outstanding commercial paper notes. The third supplemental indenture, which is a supplemental there too, provides for issuance of the 2021 new money subordinate bonds, and it could also provide for payment of bonds tendered by holders in connection with the tender offer that Andre mentioned, if any. The third supplemental indenture sets forth certain terms of the bonds, including, for example, redemption provisions, and also contains covenants of Sandag, which in this case include covenants to comply with certain tax requirements, as these will be tax-exempt bonds, as well as disclosure-related requirements. It also sets forth certain specific information that will be added following pricing, all within the parameters authorized by the Commission, including the interest rate, maturity dates, total proceeds, and other terms relating to the bonds. With respect to the bond documents, finally, the bond purchase agreements, which is the next slide, and is attachment 5. These are the agreements between the Commission and the underwriters for the bonds. Wells Fargo Bank is acting as representative for the underwriters of the senior bonds and will enter into a bond purchase agreement with respect to those. And B of A Securities is acting as representative for the underwriters of the subordinate bonds and will enter into a bond purchase agreement with respect to those. These agreements set forth the terms on which the underwriters agree to purchase the Commission's bonds, and they will also each be updated with final pricing information on the date of pricing. The agreements also contain certain representations of the Commission and the underwriters and other parties, and identify certain certificates, opinions, and other documents to be delivered by transaction participants. And with that, we're run through the bond documents, so I'll turn it over to Victor Hsu to run through the disclosure documents.
Hello, committee members. I'm Victor Hsu, a partner at Norton Rose Fulbright, and we are serving as disclosure counsel to the Commission on the bonds transaction. Attachment 6 is the preliminary official statement. The preliminary official statement, or POS, contains information, statistics, and summaries regarding the Commission, sales tax revenues, and the bonds that prospective purchasers of the bonds are likely to need in order to make an informed investment decision. The Commission has retained us as disclosure counsel to assist the Commission in preparing the POS and to complete it once the pricing and sale of the bonds has occurred. The data included in the POS and in the final official statement after pricing will be reviewed by Commission staff and its financial advisor, and the summaries of the legal documents and the bonds and other content in each document will be reviewed by bond counsel and underwriters counsel, in addition to us as disclosure counsel. However, the Commission is ultimately responsible to ensure that information in the POS and the OS are accurate and contain all information material to investors and do not omit any material information. You can go to the next slide, please. The continuing disclosure agreement is located at attachment 7. For the underwriters to comply with applicable securities laws and sell the bonds, the Commission must agree in a written undertaking to provide 1, annual reports to the municipal marketplace of certain information, including sales tax revenues and audited financial statements, and 2, notices of certain enumerated events, including payment delinquencies, defeasances, and rating changes, within 10 business days of their occurrence. The continuing disclosure agreement fulfills these requirements and allows the underwriters to market and sell the bonds to investors. The Commission has retained Digital Assurance Certification LLC, or DAC, to assist the Commission in posting information for investors on the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board's Electronic Municipal Market Access, or EMMA, system as required under the Continuing Disclosure Agreement. DAC has assisted the Commission in prior bond issues. Next slide, please. Attachment 8 is the invitation to tender bonds. The invitation to tender bonds is a disclosure and marketing document that will be used in the tender offer for the bonds that we seek to refund. In a tender offer, instead of having bonds redeemed and proceeds held in escrow, these bonds are purchased directly from existing holders. And the invitation to tender bonds will be the document used by the dealer managers for the tender to determine the best price at which the commission can purchase these bonds from existing holders. And with that, I will now turn it back over to Andre.
Great. Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Devin. If you could go to the next slide, please. So just as far as the next steps, we did receive our ratings from S&P early. We expect to receive those from Fitch next week. Pending your approval, we will go to the board of directors and look for a final review and approval of the documents next week. And once that happens, we will post a preliminary official statement and start the marketing of the bonds. We expect that the pricing of these bonds will be March 8th and then potential closing on March 22nd. Next slide. Now, this is the recommendation. I will read the recommendation, but maybe we'll look for an approval after item B. So the Transportation Committee is asked to recommend that the Board of Directors adopt Regional Transportation Commission Resolution number RTC 2021-03, authorizing up to $175 million of refunding certain outstanding bonds and the issuance of up to 100 million of fixed rate bonds and the execution and distribution of the documents in substantially the same form as attached, attachments 3 through attachment 8. So with that, Chair, I don't know if you'd like me to pause for any questions or go through item 4B and then take questions at the very end.
Why don't we go ahead and move forward, and then we can have questions at the end.
Thank you. So similar to the previous item, here we are looking to refinance our short-term notes, and whereas the previous one was our long-term bonds. Slide 2. So again, similar to the previous transaction, we have procured a finance team that will assist us through this transaction with slightly different team members. PFM will still act as our financial advisors. And in this transaction, Norton Rose will act as both our bond and disclosure counsel. And for this transaction, we have Citibank as our lead underwriter, and Ron Marino from Citibank is actually on the call today, should you have any questions for him. Next slide. So again, the focus will be on the note documents review today, but I will touch on the other items. Next slide. So again, this note issuance is one of those identified strategies to alleviate the current shortfall that we are facing. Next slide. And again, we talked about the TIFIA note closing in item number 1. The previous one was number 2 and 3 on the bonds. And here, in essence, what we're doing is we're rolling the bands, taking advantage of short-term interest rates. And ultimately, the TIFIA loan that we just closed on will take out these bands. Next item. So as I mentioned, the ratings previously, these will sit on our subordinate lien, which is also at a very strong AA. Next slide. So the potential size and structure of this is currently the notes outstanding is 537.5 million. In essence, we'll be rolling these notes. And by doing that, we'll save approximately $10 million. These will be on a tax exempt basis. And again, as mentioned, they will be sitting on our subordinate lien. Next slide. So again, these are the attachments that we will now review, items 1 through 7, starting with item number 1, the next slide. The PFA memo is basically, again, a market update and gives a little more detail about the actual note refunding structure and the financial considerations. So with that, now I'll turn it back over to Victor to talk about the remaining documents that are attached. So next slide, and Victor.
Thank you, Andre. Attachment 2 is the draft Regional Transportation Commission authorizing resolution. It authorizes issuance of the notes and approves the primary documents needed for the transaction. including the preliminary official statement, second supplement to subordinate indenture, note purchase agreement, continuing disclosure agreement, and escrow agreement. We'll go over these documents in greater detail, but just to summarize, the preliminary official statement describes the terms of the notes and material information about the commission to investors. The second supplement to subordinate indenture sets forth the terms of the notes and the duties of the commission and the trustee. The note purchase agreement sets forth the terms on which the underwriters agree to purchase the notes. The continuing disclosure agreement sets forth certain ongoing obligations of the commission to disclose annual information and the occurrence of certain listed events, and the invitation, I'm sorry, and the escrow agreement, which will be used to repay the existing 2018 notes in this refunding transaction. The resolution also approves other actions that are necessary or desirable to achieve the purposes of the resolution. Next slide, please. Attachment 3 is the second supplement to subordinate indenture. It sets forth the terms of the notes, including interest rate and maturity date and so forth. It contains certain covenants, including covenants to comply with certain tax and disclosure related requirements. It is similar to other prior fixed rate supplemental indentures approved by the commission. This is on the subordinate lien as opposed to the senior lien, but it is similar to the supplemental indenture used for the 2018 notes that are currently outstanding. And the second supplement includes certain specific information to be added within parameters authorized by the commission following pricing, including the interest rate on the notes. Next slide. Attachment 4 is the preliminary official statement. As with the senior bonds, the preliminary official statement for the notes contains information, statistics, and other information regarding the commission, sales tax revenues, and the notes themselves for prospective purchasers. The commission has retained us not only as bond counsel, but also as disclosure counsel to assist in preparation of the POS and to complete it and prepare the final official statement, the final OS, once the pricing and sale of the notes has occurred. The data included in the POS and in the final OS after pricing will be reviewed by commission staff and its financial advisor, and summaries of the legal documents and the notes and other content in each document will be reviewed by our firm as well as by Underwriters Counsel. Just would like to reiterate that the commission is ultimately responsible to ensure that the information in the POS and the OS are accurate, contain all information material to investors, and do not omit any material information. Next slide, please. Attachment 5 is the continuing disclosure agreement. As with the long-term bonds, for the notes, the note underwriters are required to have the commission agree in a written undertaking to provide annual reports of certain information, including sales tax revenues and audited financial statements, as well as notices of certain enumerated events, including payment delinquencies and rating changes within 10 business days of their occurrence. As noted earlier, the commission has retained DAC to assist it in posting information to investors on the EMA system. Next slide, please. Attachment 6 is the note purchase agreement. It is the agreement between the commission and the underwriters led by Citigroup Global Markets. It sets forth the terms on which the underwriters agree to purchase the notes, and on the day of pricing will be updated with final pricing information. It includes certain representations of the commission and the underwriters, as well as forms of opinions to be delivered by counsels to the transaction participants at closing. Next slide, please. Attachment 7 is the escrow agreement. The escrow agreement provides for an escrow account into which proceeds of the notes will be deposited in order to repay the existing 2018 notes. And with that, I will turn it back over to Andre.
Thank you, Victor. And next slide, please. Just to kind of take you through the next steps, very similar to the previous one. We will be going to the board next week, and pending their approval, we'll post a preliminary official statement the week of the 15th. We anticipate pricing these notes on February 22nd with the closing on March 15th. Next slide. So the recommendation here is that the Transportation Committee is asked to recommend that the Board of Directors adopt Regional Transportation Commission Resolution number RTC 2021-04, authorizing up to $537.5 million of refunding notes, in the execution and distribution of the documents in substantially the same form as attachments 3 through 7. So with that, Chair, I'll turn it back to you. I'd just like to, again, let you know that PFM, our financial advisors, are on the call if there's any specific questions for them, as well as our senior underwriters for both transactions, and obviously the on-council and disclosure council too. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the presentation. I would like to go ahead and call on public to see if there's any comments. Seeing that there are, I don't see any raised hands, but if anybody sees anything, please let me know. Okay, any other comments? I know some of the panelists, some of the members of the commission have some comments.
Madam Chair, this is Bill Sankey.
Yes.
Okay. Andre, real quick, in your first 4A, you talked about a rating from one agency, but you hadn't had a rating from the other agency. Can you disclose the rating we got for the first bonds? And if not, let me know that's just not ready. And then, is this a transaction that ITOC has taken a look at internally at Sandag, and have they made a recommendation?
Thank you. So the S&P did publicly issue their bonds earlier this week, and they maintained their AAA rating on the senior lien and the AA on the subordinate lien. Fitch actually is still reviewing the ratings. We actually got the ratings from S&P early. We weren't expecting them until the following week. So we do expect to get the ratings from Fitch the following week, and there's no indication that the ratings will change either. So we should state the highest levels. As far as a question on the ITOC, we have previously talked to the ITOC about the transactions that we're doing. We actually have a meeting next week with the ITOC to go through a similar presentation as we have presented to you today. But based on the timing, the TC is getting to see the documents before ITOC at this point.
Thanks, Andre, very much.
Any other comments? Okay, I think we're good. All right, I've seen there are no other comments. May I have a motion to recommend this item?
Madam Chair. And 4A and 4B, a second for both of those from Sankey.
Okay, second from Sankey. Who made the motion? Can you just say your last name when you make the motion, please? Because I can't see everybody's.
Campillo, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Sir, Vice Chair. And so now that we have a motion and a second, we have a motion by Vice Chair Campillo and a second by
Councilmember Sankey.
Thank you. I'll call on the clerk for the roll vote, please. Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. For the San Diego County Regional Airport Authority, Gil Cabrera.
Cabrera.
Thank you. For the City of San Diego, Vice Chair Campillo.
Campillo, aye.
Thank you. For the County of San Diego, Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Thank you. For East County, Councilmember Mendoza.
Mendoza, aye.
Thank you. For Metropolitan Transit System, Councilmember Montgomery Stepp.
Montgomery Stepp, yes.
Thank you. For North County Coastal, Councilmember Zito.
Zito, yes.
Thank you. For North County Inland, Mayor McNamara.
McNamara, aye.
Thank you. For North County Transit District, Councilmember Edson.
Edson, yes.
Thank you. For the Port of San Diego, Commissioner Benelli.
Benelli, yes.
Thank you. And for South County, Councilmember Sankey.
Yankee, yes.
Thank you so much, and that does pass unanimously.
Thank you. Item number 5 is the proposed final 2021 Regional Transportation Improvement Program. This is the time and place. This is the item for this. This is a time and place to set for a public hearing concerning the proposed final 2021 Regional Transportation Improvement Program. The staff report will be heard first. Then I will take questions from the committee members regarding the report. After the report, any questions, we will take public comment, and then comments from committee members. Ms. Sue?
Good morning, Chair Vargas and Vice Chair Campio and members of the Transportation Committee. My name is Sue Alpert, a Senior Financial Programming Analyst in the TransNet Department. This item is the public hearing for the proposed final 2021 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or the RTIP. The Regional Transportation Improvement Program is developed and adopted every 2 years. As this is a major update of the RTIP, we have new members on the committee. It is an appropriate time to refresh on the purpose and requirements of the Regional Transportation Improvement Program and its relationship to the other planning tools that we use. Hopefully, some of you were able to listen to the budgets and programming session at Wednesday's member orientation, which included an overview of the Regional Transportation Improvement Program. I just want to emphasize some of the key points this morning and provide an illustration of a representative project to explain the information available in the project tables. Next slide, please. We did show this slide on Wednesday, and for current and prior members, this is a slide that we've shown before. It illustrates the relationship between the Regional Transportation Plan, the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, and the budget. The Regional Transportation Plan is the long-range plan for the region. This is the roadmap for the future. The projects in the plan are prioritized in phases to achieve the transportation goals that you set and will shape the region for the next generation. The plan is required to cover 20 years and will be updated every 4 years. The current approved plan is the 2019 federal RTP. The regional plan is a long-term forecast and it includes many assumptions. To achieve fiscal control, as funds are identified, they are included in the Sandag capital budget, which contains specific information like scope, cost, and schedule for projects prioritized by the board. The Sandag capital budget covers 10 years and is updated every year. Each member agency also develops its own capital budget. The Regional Transportation Improvement Program is the short-term program of projects which assigns funds to those projects in the first 5 years of the currently approved plan. Projects in the Sandag budget and from all of our member agencies are programmed in the Regional Transportation Improvement Program. And the most important thing to know about the Regional Transportation Improvement Program is that agencies cannot get reimbursed for projects unless the funds are programmed. Next slide, please. The 2021 Regional Transportation Improvement Program is a 5-year program of projects which covers fiscal years 2021 through 2025. Preparation of the Regional Transportation Improvement Program is governed by federal planning and air quality regulations. We adopt an updated program every 2 years, as this allows us to shift the 5-year period forward by 2 years and provides more flexibility in funding and schedules. For instance, if a project is experiencing delays, we can accelerate another project which has funds programmed next year. The Regional Transportation Improvement Program can be amended, and we usually amend it at least quarterly or more often if needed to make funds available. Next slide. Regional Transportation Improvement Program is required to include all projects with federal funding and all capacity increasing and regionally significant projects. Those projects are evaluated to ensure that when constructed, they will not exceed the air quality budgets for the regions. The projects in the 2021 RTIP were modeled after going through interagency consultation on the financial assumptions and the air quality analysis procedures. The results of the modeling are detailed in Chapter 5 of the RTIP. Next slide. The TransNet ordinance also requires that all TransNet funds be programmed in the Regional Transportation Improvement Program. This includes all SANDAG projects funded with TransNet, as well as projects from the 18 cities, the county, and transit agencies. The Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee reviewed the TransNet projects in the draft 2021 Regional Transportation Improvement Program for eligibility on December 9th and had no comments. Next slide. So how do you interpret the information on the tables? This user guide shows a representative project from the Regional Transportation Improvement Program. Similar details for each project are shown in the project tables in Chapter 3 of the 2021 RTIP. The project tables are also available as a link on the agenda. The light gray section contains the key information about the project. Each project has a unique title and description that shows the location, limits, and scope of the project. It also has a route or highway and the capacity status. As this project widened a bridge, it added lanes and therefore was capacity increasing, or CI. Since it increased capacity, it was included in the air quality conformity analysis. In the upper right-hand corner, there are different project ID numbers used by Caltrans and Federal Highways to identify the project and make it easier to find. It also references the page numbers where the project was included in the Regional Transportation Plan to ensure consistency with the plan, and the project number from the SANDAG Capital Improvement Program to ensure consistency with the budget. The next light gray line shows the estimated total cost of the project and the open to traffic dates, which must also be consistent with the regional plan. The white box shows the committed funding. On the left is each different fund type and the total approved for the project in the sponsoring agency's budget. Funds that are not committed cannot be added to the RTIP. The prior column shows the funds that were programmed up through 2020 in the years prior to the current cycle. Since this project is already open to the public, most of the funds were expended in prior years. The center section shows the 5-year period of the 2021 RTIP from fiscal year 2021 to 2025 and the funds that are planned for each year. Finally, the section on the right shows the phase of work which the funds were programmed for. The RTIP is required to show 3 phases: preliminary engineering, right-of-way, and construction. Although this project is open to traffic, there are additional costs for project completion and plant establishment that will continue. The set of projects included in the 2021 RTIP was developed in coordination with member agencies, Caltrans, MTS, and CTD, as well as other agencies that have transportation projects in the San Diego region. It includes a total of 445 projects carried over from the 2018 RTIP, 7 new projects, and shows 134 projects as completed, deleted, or delayed. Attachment 3 on page 9 of your report provides a summary of the entire program, major investments organized by corridors to align with the regional vision. The corridors include all projects that would make up the multimodal corridor, including highway, transit, and multimodal projects. The report shows all funding by fund type, including funds expended prior for the total program cost of $17 billion. The funds programmed in the 5-year period of the RTIP total $5.8 billion. In order to continue to have insight into how fund is split by mode, attachment 4 on page 10 illustrates that 26% of programming is being applied to highway and multimodal facilities, while 20% is for transit. For this chart, multimodal includes high occupancy vehicle and managed lanes and connectors, transit priority lanes, and the comprehensive multimodal corridor plans. On December 11th, the Transportation Committee recommended that the board release the 2021 Regional Transportation Improvement Program for a 30-day public review, which ended on January 18th, 2021. Comments that were received during the public comment period and the responses provided are shown in attachment 11. Changes to projects from the draft that were requested by local agencies are detailed in attachment 6 on page 28. The public comment period and this public hearing fulfill the requirements for public participation. Pending Transportation Committee recommendation, the board will be asked to adopt the 2021 RTIP on February 26th. SANDAG is required to submit the final 2021 RTIP to the state by March 1st and expects federal approval by April 17th. Next slide. So the recommendation is the Transportation Committee is asked to hold a public hearing and receive testimony for the proposed final 2021 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or the RTIP, including its air quality conformity analysis and air quality conformity redetermination of the revenue-constrained 2019 Federal Regional Transportation Plan, and recommend that the Board of Directors adopt Regional Transportation Commission Resolution Number RTC 2021-05. It's substantially the same form, adopting the 2021 RTIP, including its air quality conformity analysis and air quality conformity redetermination of the 2019 Federal Regional Transportation Plan. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any, thank you, Ms. Alpert. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a comment? Please raise your hand at this time. I have one member. Please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair Norvard. And I just wanted to thank you for the report and just to highlight a couple things, and I appreciate the leadership. I first want to start off, I have not looked at the most recent in the last couple of weeks of the list, but I want to just specifically call to the City of San Diego. There is a line item for rehabilitation of bridges. And the last time I looked at this list, Barnett Bridge was in that list. And my is that with our new vision, which I totally appreciate, and our central mobility hub and our active transportation mobility work, and really the benefits of active transportation is extremely valuable in our city for health and resiliency. So when we consider those connections from Old Town to downtown, visualizing perhaps a linear park, really reallocating that space. And so I'm asking the City of San Diego, please don't invest in more money into that bridge until you have that vision for how we move through there. That is an extremely, probably one of the most dangerous areas in San Diego for a bike rider. And I just want to make sure that we're not just storing up a bridge that is not beneficial for everybody. So thank you very much.
Could you do me a favor? Could you state your name and your address, please, for the record?
Nicole Burgess, 2233 Soto Street, San Diego, 92107. My mama, Ocean Beach, District 1.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Is there any comments from the committee? No? Okay. Unless someone objects, I will.
Sorry, Chair Vargas.
Yes.
We need to formally close the public hearing.
Okay. That's what I was going to do, right?
We do have a couple of hands raised from members who'd like to make comments before we close.
Or questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I think, well, I'll go first. This is Councilmember Zito. I did have a question of staff, which is we did have a couple of public comments in the feedback period that were related to a multi-use path along State Route 67. And the response to those comments was forwarding the comments onto the project team. So my question is, does the RTP program funds for that? And is there funds for a multi-use pass along 67 as mentioned by those commenters? And is that up to the project team to decide? Or is that some action that we would have to take?
So thank you for that question. At this point, that project is still in environmental analysis. And so the opportunity to add that path could be considered as one of the recommended alternatives. That's why we forwarded their comments to the project team so they could take that and that the commenters from the city of Poway could also participate in the public scoping meeting that was held this week.
Okay, thanks. Because I mean, at least, you know, listening to a number of the comments that have been made over the past couple of years by Executive Director Ekrada, he's pointed out we have to consider all modes of transportation when we are making these improvements. And I think that would be a critical element to that corridor to make sure that we're considering all modes, and would like to make sure that's part of the direction that team is getting. So
yeah, and Councilmember Zito, thank you for bringing that up. You're totally correct. And specifically to the 67, we did mention that we're gonna and Caltran is moving forward with the study with SANDAG right now on the safety improvement. That we're absolutely going to fulfill. But just so you know, the programming doesn't happen in the RTP, in the Regional Transportation Plan, but it does happen at the RTIP.
Yeah, I misspoke. I meant RTIP. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't absorb it well enough over the past couple of days, I guess.
Well, you're doing great. You're doing great. But we do look at multimodal approach, and on the 67 we said safety is a consideration, big one. And Caltrans right now with SANDAG is doing the study on the 67. So once that's, like Sue mentioned, once that's the environmental is completed, then we'll go back into the programming of the TIP and inclusion.
So at that point in time, we'd still have an opportunity to direct those funds actually get allocated for a multi-use path at that point.
Yeah, every time there is an environmental complete and it's ready for funding and there is money identified, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think there's one more member of the committee that wants to speak, but let me go ahead just for purposes of the formality of this process. I have to go ahead and close this meeting, and then members can go ahead and comment, okay, just to make sure that it's clear. So unless someone objects from the public, I'm not now going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And then I will now turn it over to members for any comments. And I know I have a member who wants to speak. If you can just state your name when you speak and go ahead.
This is Joel Edson. There are several North County transit projects included in the TransNet ordinance that remain unfunded. In total, approximately 800 million is needed to complete double tracking projects along the Losan corridor. Two critical shovel-ready projects along the Losan corridor include the San Dieguito Lagoon double track and platform project, 220 million, and the Bataquitas Lagoon double track project at 90 million. These projects are shovel-ready for construction, but lack funding. Additionally, approximately 200 million is needed to complete double tracking along the Sprinter corridor. The TransNet extension ordinance and expenditure plan includes Sprinter upgrades such as double tracking and grade separations in order to achieve 15-minute all-day service by 2030. TransNet identified operating funds for 15-minute, 30-minute off-peak Sprinter service by 2016, but the necessary corridor projects have not yet been completed. NCTD has identified 9.5 miles of strategic double track, estimated to cost approximately 200 million in order to achieve those 15-minute frequencies. NCTD encourages continuous engagement about SANDAG's plan for future RTIP programs beyond FY 2025 in order to fund these critical infrastructure projects for the region. Thank you. That's my comment.
If I may, Madam Chair, and this is, I'm grateful that Councilmember Edson brought this up, and I want to make sure that, especially for the new members, to get a little bit in the lay of the land. And the TransNet program had a list of projects that probably needed more than $10 billion. And we have to face the truth that last year the board approved every penny of TransNet until 2025. We have absolutely zero money available to program anything. And that's what the tip that Sue is talking about. I also, sorry to report that between now and 2035, we're going to have very little money to do any major infrastructure project from the TransNet. These are the realities that you have to know. I mean, people could say, you promised me. Well, maybe we did, maybe we didn't. But regardless, very little money left in the TransNet program. Total between now and 2048 is about 2.5 billion. And we programmed until 2025 every penny. And now we're having this cash flow issue that we have to work with. So I appreciate what Councilmember Edson said about the double tracking, the commitment and the commitment to the highway program. But the reality is, like Councilmember Zito been through this discussion before, we presented to the board and we're happy to bring it back to this committee. There is no money. I don't want you to just look for something that's not there. And I don't want to spoil your weekend by saying that, but these are the facts.
But you just did. I was kidding.
Well, as I mentioned, you know, NCPD is encouraging continuous engagement for future RTIP programming beyond 2025. So we're aware of the reality of the current RTIP.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation too.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you both. Any other comments? I think I see one more panelist. One more committee member.
I think Gustavo's hand is up.
Thank you, Chair Vargas. Hopefully my sound is coming in a little bit better than earlier. I wanted to address the comments by Council Member Zito and also Mr. Ikrada about 67 and active transportation bike paths on 67. So just to reiterate what Mr. Ikrada said, encouraging multimodal transportation and providing active transportation options like a bike path or bike lanes on 67 is part of the scope of the study that we're doing on 67. So we will be studying that in the environmental document. And that was part of what was discussed in the public scoping meeting last week, as Mr. Ikrada mentioned earlier. But in addition to that, I wanted to mention that we're going out to bid with a project later this year. The project is already engineered and is to repave basically all of 67. And as part of that project, we will be making a lot of improvements that have been identified by the bike coalition and the bike community. So some short-term improvements are coming to 67. Those are some great input that we received through our BPAC committee, and that will be implemented with that paving job as it starts later this year. So thank you so much.
Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, we're going to move on to our next item, which yes.
We need a vote to recommend.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if you accept a motion to approve the staff recommendation for item 5.
There you go.
RTIP.
All right. Is there a motion to approve item 5?
Yes, I made that. Sankey here. I've made that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second by Edson.
Thank you. If you could go ahead and call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. For the San Diego County Regional Airport Authority, Bob Lloyd.
Bob Lloyd, aye.
Thank you. For the City of San Diego, Vice Chair Campillo.
Campillo, aye.
Thank you. For the County of San Diego, Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Thank you. For East County, Councilmember Mendoza.
Mendoza, aye.
Thank you. For Metropolitan Transit System is absent. For North County Coastal, Councilmember Zito.
Zito, yes.
Thank you. For North County Inland, Mayor McNamara.
McNamara, aye.
Thank you. For North County Transit District, Councilmember Edson.
Edson, aye.
Thank you. For the Port of San Diego, Commissioner Benelli.
Benelli, yes.
Thank you. And for South County, Councilmember Sankey.
Sankey, aye.
Thank you very much, and that does pass unanimously.
Thank you very much, and thank you for reminding me to do that. All right, item number 6 is the proposed fiscal year 2021 program budget amendment, Otay Mesa East Port of Entry. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Oso for a presentation.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And with me, it's also Maria Rodriguez, one of the project managers for the Otay Mesa East. I cannot do a presentation without acknowledging the other 3 project managers, Carrie Robinson, Jacqueline Appleton Dean, and Nicola Bernard. They're instrumental of getting and moving this project along. We're leading exciting times, and the Otay Mesa East is not an exception. This project is moving forward, and you're going to hear a lot of me of how we're going to be focused, laser focused, to deliver the border project itself, the port of entry. So let's go into the presentation. Some of you, can we go to the next slide? Some of you may have seen some of these slides, knowing that there's new members. We're also going to go over some data about the border and some generalities. Can we move to the next slide, please? Excellent. So the border, as most of you know, brings a huge amount of opportunity to our region and makes that Cali Baja region something that's world renowned. You're just seeing the numbers for the San Diego County at the border, $112 million people crossing the border. In the last decade, we had a 30% growth on border crossings. We even had a 45% growth on freight crossings. So that gives you the idea how much things are moving. And a point that I wanted to make, we're in a pandemic right now. We have seen some border crossings numbers go down, which due to the restrictions that exist, statewide, we're about at 75% of pre-pandemic crossings for vehicles, about 50% for pedestrians. On freight, we're 110%, meaning about 10% over pre-pandemic. Just comparing December 2020 to December 2019, there was about a 9% increase in Otay Mesa. So that gives you the idea, also USMCA, how that is playing through. Let's go to the next slide. We do acknowledge that there have been some great improvements in San Isidro and at Otay Mesa. We're going through some improvements in the pedestrian and the cargo facilities. But studies have shown us that if we want to be lined up for this new century, we were going to need to build a new border crossing. The last opportunity landmass wise is Otay Mesa East. So that's how we've embarked into the project. And since then, been working almost since 2008 actively on getting the corridor to have the new border project. And let me introduce you. Can we go to the next slide and show a video of what Otay Mesa is?
The Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project is an innovative binational multi-agency infrastructure initiative that will enhance regional mobility and trade. Demand for cross-border movement continues to grow on all fronts. Between pedestrians, cars, buses, trucks, and air travelers, the demand for cross-border travel is surpassing current capacity. The region has a vision for a new state-of-the-art port of entry located at Otay Mesa East, which will promote and accommodate further population and economic growth. The aim is to provide a fast, predictable, and innovative port of entry with secure border crossings supported by tolled roads. This is an ideal location for a port of entry, as it is the last undeveloped site before reaching the mountains to the east. Transportation improvements being implemented as part of this project include the new State Route 11, northbound and southbound connectors between State Routes 125, 905, and 11, and the tolled approach road to the new port of entry. The new port of entry will integrate the latest technologies, providing real-time information on traffic and wait times miles before travelers reach the border. The new approach roads will track actual travel times and advise travelers of tolls and traffic conditions. The port of entry inspection lanes are designed to be interchangeable and flexible to respond to border traffic conditions. Either cars or trucks can be processed in each lane depending upon demand. The new crossing will use the latest in traffic control systems and variable tolls as effective demand management tools, with the goal of a 20-minute average wait time. Traffic flow will also be enhanced by optimized design and changeable messaging signs. Every detail of the new port of entry will be engineered to maximize efficiency and optimize processes, complemented by the latest homeland security equipment. There are many partners that are working on this visionary binational project. Together, we are confident that the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry will be a world-class facility that will enhance regional mobility and foster growth and trade for decades to come.
Great, thank you. Can we go back to the presentation now? As we heard, there are some benefits that the project brings out. Reduction of wait times. based on our preliminary analysis, we can even reduce wait times at the other border crossings, the free border crossings, up to 50% by opening day. On the economic benefits, today we're here to talk a little bit about the trade corridor enhancement funds that we were awarded. But when we were doing this application, we did a cost benefit analysis, and the numbers were just astonishing. What came out as a 10-to-1 rate of return on any dollar that we invest on this facility, that we would get back to the economy and to the society of San Diego. Definitely the doing new technology, and council member Sankey a couple of meetings ago asked what we're doing new here, and some of the new technology is non-intrusive inspection equipment that CBP wants to put in here, and that would strengthen the security and the resiliency, but it also will hopefully help us expedite the processing. Reduction of greenhouse emissions, some very preliminary analysis tells us that we're going to reduce CO2 by about 22% by 2035, helping reduce all the border wait times at the different border crossings, as well as this facility providing that 20-minute target of wait times. So it has a huge benefit. Also, another question Council Member Sankey asked a couple of weeks ago was, are you doing something different, something new? Yes, we're piloting, potentially piloting appointment services, front of the line for non-emission vehicles, a slur of strategy that will help us get to that point and that target. Enhanced mobility, you know, maximizing the efficiency, those flexible lanes that the video mentioned. I was just in a meeting earlier this morning, and a good example that the Maulers were talking about is on the weekends, we do not have freight traffic, but yet all those freight lanes, we will be able to make them passenger vehicle lanes, and also during different times on the weekdays. So those are the different strategies, and definitely bolstering the binational trade. We have seen USMCA, as soon as it came in, we have seen how the truck numbers have gone on up, even during the pandemic. And we'll also started seeing the phenomenon of what's called short shoring. Some companies, based on issues that are happening with the trade differences in Asia or other reasons, are deciding to have better North America as their production line, and therefore what they call short shoring, have a closer distance on their supply chains and their production lanes to their final products. So those are some of the benefits that the project brings. Can we go to the next slide? Where are we? Up to this point, and I've come through the years and always up the number here, but our current committed funds and invested funds are $568 million. So we've been very successful in bringing in and leveraging funds for basically start building what we call the corridor vision, which is not just the port of entry, but the appropriate roadway infrastructure that leads to the port of entry. One thing that I always mention is good to have a healthy heart, but you also need healthy arteries. And it's also, if you have bad arteries or a bad heart, then also the arteries don't work. It's a balancing act here. And a reality that we may want to accept or not, that as much as what we do to our existing border crossings that are maxed up in the near future, the roadway systems approaching them aren't the best and won't be able to be fixed totally. We have to do some improvements to the existing roadway systems and maintain them and make them function better. But definitely they won't be sufficient for the future, nor the ports of entry. So this project is looking into building that systematic approach of connecting with intelligent transportation systems all the border crossings, but also providing at this border crossing an adequate roadway system, both on the US and on the Mexican side, to service that port of entry that can be growing with time, a modular system here. Why am I saying this? Well, because first thing is we are now fully funded and under construction on the entire roadway system. So we're laser focused on delivering that port of entry, and you will be seeing that in a second video in a second. But also we are coordinating with our Mexican government with the Mexican government, excuse me, our partners, to get to that point and have that equal good system serving this port of entry. But we are laser focused on delivering the port of entry now. Can we go, well, one more point. The port of entry facility is 120 acres big. Are we going to use the 120 acres by opening day? No, that's bigger than Disneyland. But we've been thinking that this will allow us to grow and to pilot other programs that will help expedite freight and people. This is the last remaining landmass that San Diego has to prepare for growing for the 21st century at the border. Can we go to the next slide? So where are we with the construction? This is another video. We wanted to show you a couple of videos because I know I'm kind of boring and my voice is not the best here. So why don't we go to the video and show you how we're doing with construction? Just a comment, the building you're gonna see back there, as well as in other pictures, is the Amazon building that's being constructed in the county area. It accounts for the more than 50% of the commercial space being developed currently in San Diego County. This is the roadway leading to the port of entry. We've been working during the pandemic. We're ahead of schedule. There's the Amazon building. I think it's 4 million square feet. And this is like if you would be driving towards the port of entry now. The last thing you're gonna see is the actual site itself. We have put some flags so you can't see them here, but we're basically knocking the door at the border fence, and that's what's coming up next. So that's where we are with construction. Basically, like I said, roadways are fully funded and under construction, and laser focus on delivering the border. Basically, we're finishing with the horizontal construction. We're starting to focus on the vertical construction. A good tidbit that happened this summer, but it's also a good risk management. You know, we've already bought all the right-of-way. We're fully funded on the roadways under construction. The environmental document is finalized. All the environmental mitigation is done. And what happened is we have monitors from the Natural History Museum always in our Caltrans jobs. So this summer, I don't know if all of you heard the news, but something exciting happened. We unearthed some fossils, and they are 16 to 28 million years old. They really provide an insight on a missing geological age that we had in San Diego. So some of the paleontologists were calling it the holy grail of findings. They spent a couple of months there. We didn't make it public when it was happening because we didn't want to happen that somebody would want to go there in the night and we would lose some of those fossils. Since then, all the fossils have been now taken by the NAT. They're being curated in their warehouses, and they're going to hold them in perpetuity for our society. I am hopeful that when we open this port of entry, we will have an exhibit where the fossils are in the port of entry and people can see what we found on the job site. So that was very exciting during the summer. And this is the team of paleontologists that were there and some of our construction crews and yours truly. Can we go to next slide? This is, again, just to highlight, this is what we're envisioning for the port of entry with its companion way station from the Highway Patrol. Again, trying to focus. We are now moving from the horizontal construction into the vertical construction with laser focus on that. The teams are preparing what's called a traffic and revenue study, investment grade, so Andre can go and finance, and hopefully one of these days we can come with a presentation of disclosure of bond documents like Andre and his team were doing earlier. And also trying to work out different understandings that we will come and inform as they're moving with the federal government for staffing, for operations, as well as with Mexico on revenue sharing for one single toll location on this facility. So those items are going on. And why don't we go to the next slide? Because we always get that question, where is Mexico, right? It takes two to tango, especially in a border project. And definitely, we have been working with our Mexican partners. Last month, Gustavo, Hassan, Jim, and other leaderships, together with Secretary Kim, we held a meeting with the Secretary of Transportation of Mexico. It was agreed to sign a framework memorandum of understanding outlining the goals of this project and major technical understandings. That I'm hoping that we will be signing that MOU in the next couple of months. We have pretty much finalized the wording on it. What do they say? What did we agree to? The single toll location for both countries on the US side, residing that. We would share the toll revenues, northbound and southbound. The functionality of the system needs to, the intelligent transportation systems need to be mirror systems. So I'll give you an example. When Border Patrol or when Customs decides to close certain lanes, well, that information needs to be far ahead on the Mexican roadway, and we're telling them lane 5, 6 is closed, move this way, or we're processing trucks on these lanes. The toll, variable toll will be so much. And vice versa, if Mexico does some things on their port of entry, it needs to be communicated far in advance on State Route 11 and 905 on our state highways. And I could get into a lot of other functionalities, but those are some of the examples. We also had the understandings Mexico will be funding their right-of-way purchase with public funds. They will also be funding with their public funds their port of entry, and they endeavor with their share of the tolls to finance the roadway. As we on our side have fully financed the right-of-way and the roadway with public funds, and we endeavor to finance our port of entry with the revenues from the tolls. So 2 out of 3 for each country. That was also a result of some of the trips that some of you have taken to Mexico City and accompany us. And that was a proposal we put to the Mexican government in 2019, and it has now been honored. So that's pretty good, and we're pretty happy. Now, the big challenge that the bosses are giving me here and giving the entire project team is open this facility by 2024. That's what we're going to try to do. That's our aspiration. And that's being put on the memorandum of understanding. Is it easy? No, it's not. It's going to be very difficult, and we're going to need all of your support on negotiations, on understandings, on moving forward with this project that it's somewhat complex due to the number of agreements that need to be put in place and its binational component. Mexico is acquiring the right-of-way. Mexico has secured the project manager, and Mexico has secured the companies that are designing their roadways. And they're also in the process of securing an agreement with the Autonomous University of Mexico that will be doing the design of the port of entry. Can we go to the next slide? So the purpose that we're here is twofold: to provide you information about the project, tell you how we're now laser focused on going vertical in the project and doing the port of entry or pursuing the port of entry itself, and to get your permission or your recommendation to the board, which will go to the actual recommendation in a second, on the grants that we were awarded by the CTC. The Proposition 1B Trade Corridor Enhancement Program awarded us $42.5 million last December. And that money is for beginning the design of the port of entry itself and doing all the utility preparations, meaning relocating some major gas lines, bringing all the services to this site, and start again building that vertical facility up, doing some of the drainage systems potentially. So that's what we're now focused and we're working towards. Can we go to the next slide? Like I said, we're embarking in a very fun and intense journey that's going to require multiple agreements on this project. It's going to do the utility and site preparations with those $42.5 million, and as well as the design. The traffic and revenue study that is being conducted and we endeavor to finish by the end of this summer will help us move also forward in the financing strategy, as well as with the agreements once we get to a revenue split agreement with Mexico. Once all those elements are aligned, we can move forward with funding the construction phase of this project and managing all the risk under those agreements. So can we go to the next slide? So today, like I mentioned, one of the steps is that we're here to request the Transportation Committee to recommend to the Board of Directors to approve the amendment to the fiscal year 2021 project budget to accept the $42.52 million of state corridor trade corridor enhancement program funds and transfer $2.6 million from existing SR11 Otay Mesa East project in segment 2 SR11 905 125 11 connectors project. These are the ongoing projects that you saw to move those funds to act as matching funds for the $42.5 million. So that's where we are here. I really want to thank you. That concludes my presentation. I welcome any questions.
So before, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mario, thank you. I couldn't thank Mario and his team, Maria and Kerry and Hector, enough for in the last 2 years moving this project with the speed of light. I just mentioned, I spoke to our chair here, our chairwoman, Vargas. We're gonna be relying on her leadership further to move to meet that deadline of September 24th. But for the committee member, just so you know, so we have Baja California, 3.7 million people, San Diego region, 3.37 million population, cannot absolutely survive economically without each other. This goes beyond just simply putting a building or doing a route. This is an amazing project. I actually, in my first year here, traveled with Gustavo, District Director 11, and with Mario 4 times to Mexico City. We met with highest level official. They're excited. I think right now we have a light at the end of the tunnel where we know exactly what we're asking. But I also want you to know that there's still challenges. I mean, COVID-19 really, I could talk forever about how horrible this COVID-19 was, and I'm really sick of these Zoom meetings. You know, you can't make deals, billion-dollar deals with Zoom meetings. You have to see people face to face. So I can't wait until we go and meet with our partners in Mexico City, because frankly, the only way this is going to move is by meeting people and shaking hands and explaining. And Mario has done with Hector an amazing job doing that. For this committee, just so you know, like Mario mentioned, September 24th is an ambitious, but it's a must. We can't go forever talking about the project. I mean, Mario already secured more than $500 million on our side of the border. But I also, once we're able to get together in person, I would love for this committee actually to go to the border because you get the appreciation. I know Supervisor Vargas was there. You get the appreciation what it means to have 100 acres and all these construction work. But we rely on this committee to guide us through this. I want to thank Councilmember Sankey, and I appreciate his work on this committee and chairing it the last couple of times. He's been to the border. He knows what I'm talking about, the appreciation, what you get. But we need every ounce of relation building with Mexico City, and I'm sure our chairwoman is going to provide us that. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Hassan, and I'm really looking forward to it. I have to say that this is one of my favorite presentations today. I'm going to go ahead and call on public to see if there is any comments from the public. Seeing no raised hands from the public, are there any member comments? I see one. There's three. Okay, go ahead.
I had my hand raised. This is Councilmember Edson. So I was wondering if we could look at slide 9 again. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Mario. Can you show me where that, is it possible to point out where that Amazon building will be?
Oh, that's a great question. It's not on the port of entry. It's a mile away connecting to State Route 11. Can we go to the layout and we can show a better to
northwest, right, Mario?
Yes, it's on the northwest about a mile. It's in the intersection of Enrico Fermi and SR 11. And that's where actually we're going to be giving you some great news of opening will be the first diverging diamond interchange, meaning moving traffic from a kind of an English perspective on the opposite way. In order to account for all the high number of trucks. So it's about a mile from here, right on State Route 11. It's right there where it says Enrico Fermi interchange.
Okay, I was curious. I was really fortunate my first year on Sandag as a board member, 2017. I did take a border tour, and I recommend it highly to anybody to really see what's going on. And it's amazing seeing those videos and how much work has actually been done in those 4 years. So I know it's moving slowly for some, but it's amazing to me to look at. I kind of have a couple questions. So with regard to that Amazon building, do you know from a regional planning perspective how many employees they anticipate needing there?
I had the number, I don't have it in my head right now, but it was in the thousands. I think it was 2,000. It's something humongous. It's about 4 million square feet. And it's going to be a major distribution center. And to be honest, we're already having conversations with Amazon. It's such a huge company. We're trying to see where we can connect either with the sustainability, the electrification for their vehicles in the area, as well as what services can this border crossing and State Route 11 and 125 can provide to that distribution center.
You mentioned that adequate right-of-way had been procured. Is it adequate to drive, to accommodate that number of employees? And is there any I would think if we're moving that many employees back and forth, and are these binational employees or are they just strictly US employees? You probably don't know that. That would be an Amazon question. Sorry.
To your question, it's actually very common in this side of the region where a lot of folks are working on this side of the border and they live in Tijuana. So they could be.
Yeah, so I'm just curious if there's enough right of way to do rapids and things like that, not just regular road, looking into the future, because if Amazon's locating there, obviously other big companies are probably going to look at that opportunity as well.
Just on the previous, I think Madam Chair is correct by indicating that it is both. There is people who live in Tijuana and work here, and vice versa, people who live in San Diego and cross the border every day. But one of the things that I think Mario alluded to earlier, this is going to create a lot of activities that we didn't have. And the question is how many additional truck trips and how many additional passenger trips, and is there the capacity to do that? But I just want you to know that this whole Otay Mesa East area is yet ripe for development. and there will be more traffic impacts. I do believe the infrastructure that Mario mainly secure and build right now is good, but it's not going to be enough probably when this is fully developed. So the idea is to have an economic development zone for an area that hadn't had it before. But I do think that it will be a two-way traffic between us and Mexico. Mario, right?
Yes, sir. And to add, we modeled together with the county and the city based on the land uses and what they were going to be permitting. So we accounted for what the both land use agencies would be permitting in the area as light industrial.
I also kind of was curious about, given the size of the facility, that if there had been any consideration of public-private for securing right-of-way for like your people mover kind of ideas, Hassan, or fixed rail or trolley or something.
Right. We're actually, our, and Mario made sure we do that, our high-speed rail connection. So the border is going to go from CBX to San Isidro to Otay, Mesa to, and this is one of the 5 big moves you're going to hear a lot about. This is where you get into, it's going to be a must to have, giving them the number of people that move in that corridor. So yeah, there will be either a next rapid transit or a high-speed rail connection between all these facilities and CBX and up to our region, all the way to Oceanside.
Very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And my understanding is that it'll be 1,500 new jobs.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you. Vice Chair Campillo?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Orso, for this presentation. Just wanted to say I'm fully in support of what we all need to do to make sure this helps both sides of the border economically. As the new Economic Development and Intergovernmental Relations Committee Chair for the City of San Diego, this is one of my biggest priorities. I've committed to spending 3 meetings of our committee this year on focusing on border economy, border infrastructure issues. So you're going to have a partner in me and my committee to make sure we can do what we can from the City of San Diego side on this. The Otay Mesa East port, 25 years of planning going into this. It's amazing to see how close we are to 2024 at this point. So thank you to you. Thank you to all your staff and Hassan, of course, for leadership on this. And I look forward to seeing this completed and the City of San Diego really helping you with it.
Yeah, Mario will be really unhappy if he goes beyond 2024. He knows. Gustavo is going to have a talk with him.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Mr. Gallarda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to add, well, first thank Mario and his team. You can tell by Mario's presentation and his voice how passionate he is about this project. Him and his team pour his heart and soul into this project. And like Hassan said, they've been able to bring $500 million to get it to the point where it is. Yes, we're going to have it open by 2024. When you talk to Customs and Borders Protection, and they share some of the statistics of the number of travelers that they process in the United States, about a quarter of them come from the California Mexico borders. And if you look at the number of vehicles that they process through the California-Mexico borders, as well as pedestrians and agricultural goods, is a staggering number. But one of the things that surprises some people sometimes is that it's not all coming northbound. There's a lot of the products that come from Mexico are made with American parts. So we export a lot of goods into Mexico. Mexico is our #1 trade partner. So this project, about other things, it is an economic engine for this region. And that's very important because it's going to create jobs and for San Diego as well as for California. So I just want to share that. Thank you.
And for the group's benefit, we had director talks, the headquarter Caltrans director, come to San Diego, spend the day with us, go to the border. I think that was before they identified the 42.6 million, otherwise he would have been in trouble. But I think this is, I think I told the supervisor, the lieutenant governor and the governor office are really committed to this. Mario and I and Gustavo spoke to the lieutenant governor. Obviously, we're not a national government. We can't negotiate, but we made it clear to the federal government that we're a resource. The state, especially the lieutenant governors of it, made it clear that they want to move this and be a partner. So all things are falling in place, and thanks to Mario and his team, they truly amazing work in a short time period.
Thank you so much. Is there a motion? I don't think there's any other comments. Is there
Madam
a
Chair?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sankey here.
Yes, sir.
Mario, increíble, como siempre. Gracias. And if you have an opportunity when this COVID thing goes away to take a tour of this site, you ought to take advantage of it. I cannot say enough about how professional and pleasant Mario is to work with. It's been 4 or 5 years that we've been in contact, and this cooperation that he's developing with the Mexican side is flowing over into other parts of our cooperative relationship with Mexico, particularly as it relates to border sewage. So Mario, thank you so much for building this bridge, and appreciate all the work you and your people are doing. With that said, I'd make a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
All right. No sabía que hablaba español, pero voy a empezar a hablar con español con usted.
Dependiendo.
We can have our meetings in Spanish, but all right. Thank you for that motion. Is there a second?
Second, Edson.
Edson. Okay, we have a motion by Saki and a second by Edson. I'm going to ask the clerk to go ahead and call the roll, please.
Thank you, Chair. For the San Diego County Regional Airport Authority, Bob Lloyd.
Bob Lloyd, aye.
Thank you. For the City of San Diego, Vice Chair Campillo.
Campillo, aye.
Thank you. For the County of San Diego, Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Thank you. For East County, Councilmember Mendoza.
Mendoza, aye.
Thank you. MTS is absent. North County Coastal, Councilmember Zito.
Zito, yes.
Thank you. For North County Inland, Mayor McNamara.
McNamara, aye.
Thank you. For North County Transit District, Councilmember Edson.
Edson, aye.
Thank you. For the Port of San Diego, Commissioner Benelli.
Benelli, yes.
Thank you. And for South County, Councilmember Sankey.
Sankey, yes.
Thank you. And that does pass with those unanimously with those members present.
Fantastic. And again, thank you for a wonderful presentation. Item number 7 is the update. It's a discussion item, and it's an update on the next generation transit fare system and possible fare changes. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Bryan.
Thank you, Chair Vargas. Thanks for having me today. I'd appreciate next time going before Mario. That's a tough act to follow. I have no exciting videos to show today. I'm Brian Lane. I'm a planner here at Sandag. We've been working with MTS and NCTD on the Pronto fare system, which I'll talk about, as well as the proposed fare changes. I'm here on behalf of Sandag discussing this and bringing this to the Transportation Committee because ultimately the Transportation Committee does approve any changes to the fare ordinance. So as I'll discuss later in the item, we'll be the timeline for this. We'll be getting some recommendations from MTS and NCTD's board, but we'd appreciate your discussion today and feedback, and we could send that back to MTS and NCTD's boards. The next slide, I will talk about the Pronto fare system. That's the new fare, next generation fare system that MTS and NCTD are building at this moment. They plan to roll that out this summer, start piloting and working that in conjunction with Compass, and at some point turn Compass off and completely move on to Pronto. They're hoping to have that in time for the Mid-Coast start later this fall. So that is our deadline for getting that in place. Why are we getting rid of Compass? It was purchased in 2003. It's a smart card system that replaced paper passes at that point. The system hardware is now at the end of its useful life, and it lacks functionality necessary in a 5G world. So MTS and NCTD and Sandag started working in 2016 to procure a new system, did a lot of background work to prepare for that, and did some site visits, and ultimately selected Init in 2018 to be the company to build the Pronto system for them. Next slide. So how does Pronto work? It's an account-based fare system with real-time communication. So unlike Compass Card that takes a day or so for the cards to be recognized on a bus, this will be real-time for the users and for the the buses, the trains, and all the fare boxes. The system allows riders to add money to their account easily at many retail locations, and I'll talk about that in a minute. It allows riders to earn passes rather than pay up front. That's called best possible fares, or sometimes called fare capping. And I'll talk a bit about that, but that does have revenue impacts for both transit agencies, which I'll get into a little bit. Monthly passes will still be available with the new system. Cash will always still be available. These will be a card, kind of like the Compass card, but there'll still be apps as well. That'll be on a new platform. And like I said, cash will still be available. There'll be a new Pronto mobile app and websites that will be rolled out as part of this, completely replacing Compass apps and their websites that they're using. Great benefit is multiple cards can be managed from one account. So families will be able to manage their account or their cards all on one account. And then another great part of this, and our ITS folks are looking forward to this, is it's an open architecture to allow future integration. So if we want to tack on things like smart parking or any types of public-private partnerships, we'll be able to tack these on quite easily. It's a lot harder with the older technology that we have currently. Next slide. So some of the other rider benefits, like I mentioned, there's a massive increase in the retail network for where people can purchase the cards and reload their cards. Today's network has about 60 locations, including all the ticket machines at the rail stations around the county. We plan to launch with up to about 100 locations at the beginning, growing to 400 or more. Places like 7-Elevens, possibly Rite Aid, CVS's, all those types of places. Kind of the places that sell gift cards today will be the ones that we'll be working to sign agreements with to sell the Pronto card. Some other benefits are that mobile app features. You'll be able to do account management and to track your progress towards earning passes on that mobile app. And there'll be other online capabilities for verifying eligibility for reduced fares, and then also improve account management with our institutional partners, like many of our universities and colleges, plus a lot of the big companies that we work with to sell passes to employees. Next slide. So why Pronto? Why purple? The naming exercise was a collaborative effort with NCTD and MTS. The idea was that it's a quick, easy, and convenient Pronto. So for those of you who speak Spanish, you kind of maybe already used that word. So we're adding that into the lingo here in San Diego. It's easily understood in multiple languages. I think even Italians and others use that word. Pronto Purple is a combination of MTS's red and NCTD's blue branding, and I've heard a lot of people really like this color, and it stands out. And it has a unique branding that will stand out in the retail networks when that card's sitting on the racks with all the other cards. Next slide. So the fare adjustment scenarios that we're discussing at this time, and this is just purely informational, getting feedback from a lot of folks. As we started rolling out the Pronto system a couple of years ago and thinking of what kind of fare changes we would need, we did a fare change 2 years ago to have a couple increases. We massively simplified the fare structure, got rid of specific fares that were just confusing to a lot of riders and made it simpler for Pronto to be enacted. As part of our work over the last year, we were trying to think of all the ways that the best fare capabilities can be instituted, some decreases for youth and other riders. And staff's, thinking in the background was, we need to do our due diligence to ensure that this is a revenue neutral proposition, that the transit agencies wouldn't lose money on a new fare system, but also considering, with COVID and pandemic coming into place, ridership decreasing, fare increases probably weren't going to be well received, and anytime fare increases happen, some riders lose a benefit and are disenfranchised. So we did want to ensure that we considered all the scenarios and that the boards and the Transportation Committee at SANDAG could see all the different scenarios and weigh in and move forward on a proposed recommendation. So our first scenario was reducing the youth one-way regional fare from $2.50 to $1.25. That would align us with the senior disabled Medicare, the SDM pass, or one-way fare that's also at that same price. A couple years ago, we reduced the youth monthly passes and started a day pass that aligned with that SDM price. So this would just align the one-way fares at the same price as SDM. On this scenario, we are considering increasing the adult one-way regional fare from $250 to $275. And commensurate with that, you would increase the MTS access and NCT lift fares from $5 to $550. Second scenario would also include all of those, but also increase the monthly regional passes to $75 for adults and $24 for SDM and youth. And then scenario 3 would just reduce the youth one-way regional fares from $250 to $1.25. No other increases, but of course institute that best fare capabilities. And I'll jump into in the next slide the best fare scenarios and kind of give some examples on that. Next slide, please. So to understand that best fare, we have a couple examples. The first one is a SDM, the Senior Disabled Medicare rider, traveling 3 days a week, taking true trips a day, and assuming that's about 13 days of travel for a month. Today, that rider likely would pay cash for each of those trips at $1.25 a trip. That would be $2.50 a day. So for 13 days at $2.50 a day, that would add up to about $32.50 a month if they ride those 13 days. With the Pronto system, SDM and youth riders would load $7.50 a week into their account. Week 1, they deduct $1.25 for each of their 6 trips, and the system would be smart enough and add that up to $7.50. Week 2, the same thing, they do $1.25 for each of their 6 trips, and now the system knows they've spent $15. That third week, they'd deduct another $1.25 for each of their 6 trips, getting them up to $22.50. And then in week 4, the system would be smart enough and realize that they've reached the monthly pass price of $23 and only charge 50 cents for their first trip during that week. So that means their monthly pass would be earned on that 10th day of travel, and all other trips for the rest of the month would be free. So for that rider, they wouldn't have to come up front with the $23 payment for the monthly pass. They just load that $7.50 a week or however they want to that week to ensure their card has enough money. So with this example, they'd save about $9.50 a month. Next slide. In this example, we have an adult rider traveling 5 days a week, taking 4 trips a day. So this might be your worker traveling to and from work each day, maybe taking a bus to the trolley to work, and then take the trolley and bus back from work. So assuming there's 22 days, work days a month, we worked on this scenario. Today, that rider probably would buy $6 day passes each day. Riding the 22 days a month, that rider would probably spend about $132 that month. With Pronto, the rider would put $6 a day into their Pronto account. So their account would be deducted $5 for their first 2 trips that day, $2.50 each ride. And then the account for the third trip that day would only deduct $1 for that third trip because the system's smart enough to realize that the $6 day pass they've earned. And so for the rest of the day, they'd have unlimited rides and their card wouldn't be charged anymore. And then on the 12th day of travel, their monthly pass would be earned. So again, the system's smart enough to recognize that each day they've been spending $6. So 12 days times $6 gets them up to $72. And the card knows that now earn the month pass and it would stop charging them. So there'd be no more deductions. For the next 10 days of travel, no need to put $6 into their account for the next 10 days of travel. And for a great benefit is they didn't have to come up with that $72 at the beginning of the month to buy that pass. They just spent the $6 a day. And for this rider, that savings could be at least $60 a month. The next slide. So we've been doing some outreach on this. We did 3 public sessions, all virtual. They were actually well attended. We had over 150 participants. We did them on Saturday. We did one during the day, and we did one at evening. We've also, a couple weeks ago, presented this item to the Social Services Transportation Advisory Committee and to the CBO Social Equity Group yesterday. MTS heard this item a couple weeks ago. NCD was supposed to hear it a couple weeks ago as well, but their meeting went so long that they ended up pulling that item, but they did get the chance to review the item in their report. The feedback from all these virtual sessions and at MTS and our other meetings were that people were starting to understand what best fare is, and they really like it. They feel that it's a positive move towards equity and helping low-income riders. They understood that funding gaps could happen with a best fare like this, and that MTS and NCD, need to recognize those gaps and try to figure out ways to bridge those gaps. But they don't want, riders and participants didn't want the funding gap to be filled by increasing fares, and are hoping that we can look at other ways to figure that out. What we've also kind of heard is, now that we're in the middle of COVID with ridership down, it's hard to quantify what any impacts would be from this fare change. So, we're kind of hoping and hearing that if we could wait until we get out of COVID, just implement Pronto with the best fare scenarios and the youth decrease, see how we get out of COVID eventually as ridership rebounds, and actually get into the details of how the revenues have changed with all that. Is kind of what the hope we're hearing for. So next slide. So again, these are some of the input and feedback methods that we've made available for the last couple months. We've asked people if they want to, they can submit comments in writing to our mail address, to our PIO email address. We have a hotline phone number where folks can leave a voicemail, and we've responded to some calls and questions on that number. There's a web form, and we ask that people use any of those through March 1st, and we'll combine all of that that public input into appendices in the reports that we bring back later this month and next month. On the next slide, I'll talk about the timeline. So like I said, MTS met a couple weeks ago. NCD postponed the item until February. During MTS's board meeting, they did receive a letter from Circulate San Diego asking them to look into a free transfer type of affair. So at MTS's board meeting next week, we're going to talk a little bit about the possibilities of a fare like that. We've been asked to look into what kind of revenue and ridership impacts that would have. So MTS will talk about that a little bit more at that meeting, and then we'll hear more about that in the coming months. So MTS and NCD are going to receive informational items at their February board meetings. And then, from their feedback from that and today, we hope to have staff recommendations for proposed fare changes to take to their boards in March. At that time, they'll then recommend to the Transportation Committee which fares to move forward with. Then we'll come to the Sandag Transportation Committee on April 2nd, do a first reading of the comprehensive fare ordinance, and then come back on April 16th, do that second reading, and then ask for approval from the Sandag Transportation Committee. And then that gives MTS and NCD the ability to enact those fares about 30 days later. And that's when they would start piloting and working with small pilot groups and testing, and eventually roll it out over the summer. So with that, I think that's the end of my presentation. Next slide. Be happy to take any questions, answer questions, get your feedback, and listen. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for bringing this item before our committee. I'm going to first ask if there are any public comments on this item. Please raise your hand for members of the public if you have any. Okay, if seeing none, I am going to turn it over to member comments. Are there any comments from our members?
Chair Vargas?
Yes.
Brian, thanks for the presentation. Let me ask a question about marketing and brand loyalty. And this question might be in the context of the trains already left the station. I asked you yesterday when I read the report, I gave you an email, and you said about 80% of the folks who use public transit today use the Compass card to some degree. So my question would be, brand loyalty, why don't we just stay with the Compass and update, put out market that very heavily instead of going to the Pronto card? People are used to using Compass. They're used to the brand Compass versus Pronto. So why didn't we stay with Compass?
I'm on mute. That's a good question. I think Sharon Cooney from MTS is here and might want to jump in and talk about why they think Pronto is something better than the Compass card. Sorry.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Chair Vargas and committee members, hello. I did want to address the marketing on this. One of the great things about Pronto is it has so many new functionalities, and those functionalities are so different than Compass that we really wanted to highlight the difference. and the Pronto name and the energy from the new color scheme and the new branding is all going to highlight all those benefits for the customer. It's now account-based. You're going to be able to, the Compass card was from 2002, 2003 technology. And you've got to realize in your own homes that technology is so much more advanced today. So the kind of problems that they have with Compass, we don't want that associated with the new fare collection system. For instance, if you buy your Compass card online today, you have to wait up to 72 hours before it actually loads the fare onto your card. That is unreasonable. So we don't want that kind of old technology baggage to be associated with the new technology that the Pronto system brings us. So great question about the branding. We're really excited about it. If anybody is downtown, the Convention Center station has one of the new ticket vending machines with the new color scheme. It's just really exciting to see it. Thank you.
I have two other comments. I think Mr. Gallarda and Ms. Mendoza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. Great presentation, Brian, and I think this Pronto new system is definitely a step in the right direction. My question is, are you coordinating with also the Integrated Travel Project, or also known as CalITP, and the ultimate vision of having an integrated system for all of the transit systems across California, as well as one common place to get real-time data regarding all of the transit systems? And is Pronto basically kind of like the first step in that direction? Thank you.
So I'm not 100% sure, and if anyone from NTS or NCD want to jump in and respond, but I believe when they were putting out the specs for this system to be procured, that was one of the considerations. And that's why a big part of this is that open architecture to ensure that you can integrate this with anything in the future, including with Amtrak, Caltrain, Metrolink, all those types of things. Yeah, go ahead, Sharon. Thanks.
Chair Vargas, if you don't mind. I do want to let you know that we are part of that statewide effort. We have participation on the committee meetings. We're also working with the California Transit Association. It is always our vision that by having this open architecture with our system, we'll be able to integrate with the other systems throughout the state. And frankly, with any other type of transportation effort, whether it's Uber or something to do with Amtrak, there's just the world of possibilities is so much greater. So we are definitely excited about the statewide effort, and we are kind of at the forefront of having a technology that will integrate with that process.
Thank you very much. Any other comments for Ms. Mendoza?
Yes, hi. So I just want to say I participated in one of the public outreach meetings. I just because I was curious to hear for myself what the public thought of the proposal. And, as much as Mr. Ekrada tried to bring the conversation around the Pronto system, most of the comments were negative about any fare increase whatsoever. This from the general public, especially the insensitivity, the perceived insensitivity of raising fares during the pandemic when people are the hardest hit. So I just wanted to pass those comments on. A lot of the public who participated were frequent transit users, and they commented on how this was going to be a hardship for them. Overall, though, I'm glad I participated in that, because I do think that I like, as a transit user myself, I really do like the Pronto system as opposed to the current Compass system. But I just would like us to take a hard look at whether this is the time to raise fares. I think that the monthly pass increases are maybe would be a little bit easier to swallow for people. But it's our, seniors and students who are big transit users, and we need to make sure that that it's affordable for them.
Hudson? Oh, Ms. Hudson?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I had to unmute. Thank you, Brian, for the report. It was a really good practice run for a little bit of homework for my board meeting at NCTD on the 18th, where we'll be able to actually discuss this at board level. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
This is Bill Sankey. I also serve on the MTS board, and we did raise fares about 2 years ago and heard from the community the pain that would cause. And Councilmember Mendoza, you bring up a very interesting point about the timing related to COVID, and I'm sure as we move forward through this discussion, that'll play an important role. I think one of the most important parts for me when I saw the detailed, slightly more detailed presentation we got at our MTS board meeting was that there are some scenarios that actually increase ridership. And I think when I look at the scenarios we looked at for our last fee change, none of them built ridership because it was built into the fact that as you raise the price, demand goes down, and over time it comes back. So I'd be interested, Brian, as we move forward with that, making sure that you can point out to us ridership gains, because that's really the business we're in. Secondly, the public-private partnership sounds really interesting, using the out-of-county and other transit agencies as well. And I would look to see if there was an opportunity to incorporate tourists or other people wanting to visit Coronado to be able to ride the trolley downtown and then come on the ferry boat, use that through the Pronto system as well. I know our commuter ferry in the morning is free either way, and then you get a ticket to go back whichever way you go. That's subsidized in the morning, but during the day, people might have an opportunity to use the system, whether it's the buses or the trolleys, or even cross the bay and then ride the coaster up to the track, something like that, where we could incorporate that as a one ticket item. So I'd encourage you, as we bring this forward, to at least investigate that. And thanks very much for the opportunity to comment.
Thanks, Councilmember. Yeah, we generally, when we do a fare study like this, we're able to model the ridership and revenue impacts from a change. And like you said, the elasticity show that if you increase a fare, generally you're going to lose ridership. COVID kind of threw all that out the door. So we were using pre-pandemic data to try and work through a lot of the examples. But again, we know that, with COVID right now, it's out the door. So SANDAG, through its regional plan, is doing a lot of efforts to look at ways to entice ridership, building a better transit system. Also, there'll be policies on, can we find ways to decrease fares? So a long-term strategy definitely is decreasing fares for different groups of riders, if not all. So you'll be seeing that in the coming months with the regional plan.
Thank you so much. Vice Chair Campillo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Lane. Just hearing from community advocacy groups about potential youth passes for people under the age of 24, either highly subsidized. Some have floated the idea of having them free. I'm just wondering if there's been any analysis on that type of request, and and maybe going together with that, any discussion with community college, district, universities about partnership to subsidize similar ideas with students taking MTS to school.
So currently the youth pass is only for 18 and under. It doesn't go as high as the other to 24 and below. But MTS and NCD do work closely with the universities and colleges on offering highly reduced fares that are lower in price. As an example, UC San Diego, the student union actually proposed an idea to do a U-Pass, universal pass, a few years back, and that was to charge themselves a fee that they negotiated with MTS and NCD that would be charged to every student, and they would then get a pass that would provide them rides across the whole system for all the local and Sprinter and trolley and all those buses. So that's been a great, and UC students were, the ridership up in that area was massive, and then it also filtered out to the rest of the system as well. So the agencies do work closely with the universities on reduced passes and are able to help ridership that way. And again, Sandag with our regional vision is looking at ways to help fund other reductions for various groups of riders, including students, youth, seniors, low income, folks with disabilities, all those. So it's always on the table.
Great. Well, thank you for teaching me that. I hadn't known about that. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that presentation, and thank you, Vice Chair Campillo, for that question. As a former trustee at Southwestern College, I will tell you that one of the biggest challenges for our students, in addition to the fare, is also access. It takes about an hour and a half to get from San Isidro to Chula Vista to any of our campuses, and so I think it's always like the chicken and egg. The conversation was like, there's not enough ridership, but the challenge was that there wasn't enough access. So we're working on that, and making sure that it's accessible to them is, I think, going to be one of the big priorities. And so with that, I want to say that I'm very supportive of the Pronto system, because I think capping capacity for best fares, I think is going to really make a difference, and it'll expand the reach for our communities, especially, and the retail outlets. I think it will help eliminate barriers for transit-dependent community members, and so I'm excited about that. However, I do agree with staff, and I want to make sure we emphasize it, and I want to put this on the record that, and many of my colleagues have made these records, that these comments already, that I'm deeply concerned about the proposed increase of fares for the implementation of the system. I think it's not necessary, and I think it would be extremely harmful for our communities, particularly because it's many of the folks that are the ones that use the transit system have been the hardest by COVID-19. And so I want to make sure we don't forget that 80% of transit riders come from low-income communities, and proposing a fare increase in the middle of a pandemic is a bit insensitive. And so my team has joined some of these workshops and has heard loud and clear that these fare increases are not being supported by community members. So I hope that staff at MTS and NCTD are hearing this concern and implementing them in the recommendations moving forward to the board. With that, I thank you very much for that discussion, and thank you for the presentation, Mr. Lane. I am going to now ask Ms. Francesca, do we have any continued public comments?
No, Chair, I don't see any hands raised from the public.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I want to say thank you to everyone who joined the meeting today. It was my first official meeting. I will keep working on this, and I want to make sure that if you have any questions or concerns, I look forward to working with all of you as we're moving our transportation needs forward. I want to say thank you to the staff for all the work and all the presentations as well. And with that, our next transportation meeting will be scheduled for February 19th. 2021 at 9 a.m. Thank you so much. We are officially adjourned. I hope you have a safe and healthy weekend.